Yesterday we went through some of the Midrashic material on Parashat Korah, and we saw that the rabbis described Korah as attacking Moshe and Aaron, rebuking them for the corruption of the Cohanim, or that they take control over the people. And the reality is that this is the exact opposite. The rabbis were using the story of Korah to rebuke and criticize the Cohanim of their time for their corruption and taking control over the people. But there was another element of the criticism of the rabbis over the Cohanim, which is described in a different Midrash, and here it is. It says, כשאמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, קח את הלוויים והעבירו תער על כל בשרם, מיד עשה כן לקורח. התחיל לחזור על כל ישראל, לא היו מכירים אותו. When Moshe was told by God, take the Levites and dedicate them, rededicate them for the service of the Mishkan. The process of dedication was done. Part of it was complete removal of all the hair from the body, not just the head, but the whole body. And something similar is done with the Metzorah, the leper, when he completes his process of purification. And also the Nazir, when the Nazir finishes his vows, he has to shave his hair. And the idea is that the hair is sort of a cover for a person. And you remove it, and you let it grow again. That marks purification, or like a new person is being born. Just like a baby is born smooth, so also that it's like a newborn baby. So that was done to all the Levim. There were more than 23,000 Levim, or 22,000 Levim. And all had to do that. And they had to shave their own hair. But the Midrash says, Miyad asa ken leKorah. Moshe did this to Korah. So obviously the Midrash singles out, trying to highlight one case, that of Korah. But instead of Korah doing it himself, Moshe is doing it to him. So now it becomes a dispute between the two. התחיל לחזור על כל ישראל, ולא היו מכירים אותו. So now Korah, bald and clean shaven, the whole body, goes from tent to tent. He says, hi, do you know me? No, we don't know you. Who are you? And of course there's a wordplay here on the word Korah, which means in Kereach in Hebrew is bald. So Korah is bald, and he goes around, nobody knows him. אמרו לו, מי עשה לך כך? So they look at him with pity. They say, who did this to you? אמר להם, משה עשה בי. It was Moshe who did this to me. ולא עוד, אלא נטלני בידיי ורגליי. He lifted me by my arms and legs. והיו מניפים אותי ואומרים לי, הרי אתה טהור. They would raise me in the air and say, now you are pure. והביא את אהרון אחיו וקישתו ככלה והושיבו באוהל מועד. If that was not enough, he took his brother Aaron, he dressed him up like a bride, and he set them in oil moed. And then, miyad ithilu sonei Moshe litgarot bo et Yisrael. The adversaries of Moshe started inciting the Israelites against him. They said Moshe is the king, his brother Aaron is the high priest, his sons are the deputies of the priests, the Torah goes to the Kohen, the gifts go to the Kohen, etc. So the last part of it reminds us of the folk song that we saw yesterday, where the people were chanting, woe to us from this house of Cohanim, from their staff, from their whip, their gossip, their letters, because they are kings, their sons-in-law are treasurers, exact same thing. So we know that the rabbis here are echoing the problems of the Kohanim of their time. But I was looking at this Midrash years ago, and asking the question, I was asking myself, how did the rabbis put it together? I mean, they're taking two different commandments, plus the order of the Mishkan, and they make it into a criticism of Moshe. But it's almost a mockery of the commandments that God gave the Israelites. One is to shave the Levim, the other one is to do the process of tenufa, and the other one is the garments of the Kohen. The rabbis exaggerated here. There was a purpose here, there's an agenda. So what is the agenda? So like I said, first, shaving the body, all the Levim did that, right? Not only the Korah. Second, when we speak about the tenufa, the Torah says, "Ve'lakachta et Leviyim, ve'nafta otam tenufa l'Adonai." Take the Leviyim and raise them as a dedication to God. So the word lehanif in Hebrew could mean literally to lift up something in the air, but also it's symbolic. Dedication is tenufa. And not according to all commentators, but according to some, the tenufa of the Leviyim, raising or lifting of the Leviyim, was not physical, because it is not practically possible for one man, even if he is being helped by Moshe, by Aaron, by others, to lift up in the air 22,000 people. And it was done in one day. And so of course, as you will find the Midrash that says that it was a miracle and he had the superhuman power, that he was able to go through all of them. But even just in the terms of, think of the speed, it's about, if it's only done during the day, because when the Torah says day, it's waking hours, it means that they had 12 hours to do all that. It's about 2,000 people an hour, right? It doesn't add up. It's 300 people a minute, 50 people a second. So I break it down the math, more or less, approximately. We have the math teacher here, so about 5. Right, sorry, 5. But 5 people a second is still right. I missed it. So 5 people a second. That's a lot. That's impossible. So obviously, the tenufa was not physical. So why did the rabbis make it physical? Why did they describe it as physical? And also, what is the idea of referring to Aaron dressed like a bride? They were beautiful garments, yes, but they're not feminine. What is the point of that? So, like I did the research for the corruption of the Cohanim, I looked through the rabbinic literature to see if you could find evidence that those things that are mentioned here were typical to the behavior of the Cohanim that the rabbis are trying to rebuke. Meaning, is it possible that when the rabbis say that Korah rebukes Moshe for shaving the body, lifting him in the air, and dressing like a woman, were those things that were typical for the Cohanim at the time of the rabbis, and the rabbis are using that as a mouthpiece? They're hiding behind it because they are afraid to criticize them directly. So the easiest one to find for me was that statement regarding shaving the hair, because it was a persistent problem, not only at the time of the Mishnah, but into the Amoraic period, 200-300 years later. And that was most probably an influence of the Greek culture. The Greeks brought with them the culture of worshipping the body. That was part of Hellenism that never went away. The Jews were able to repel the idea of idolatry and other elements of Greek culture, but the body culture, including athletics, gymnastics, and all that remained. To the extent, it's a different discussion, that many Jews from about 150 years before the Common Era to the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century, for a period of about 200 years or 250 years, many Jews did not want to circumcise their children because they would be shamed by the Greeks, by their Greek counterparts. And in the Greek culture, athletic activities were done in the nude. I mean, there were no people who did not wear clothes. I mean, Under Armour would completely fail in the Greek Empire. Nobody would buy their garments. So they did it nude, naked, so it was very visible whether one had a brit milah or not. So people stopped circumcising their children because they wanted to blend into the Greek society. Even if someone was already circumcised, he would perform some kind of a procedure called meshuch ola, where the foreskin is pulled to cover the brit milah, so he would seem uncircumcised. And it was only at the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt that hundreds and thousands of people re-circumcised. So we know that was a major influence on Jews at the time. One of the things that they did also as preparation for those games, for the athletic activities that were done in naked, was shaving the body. And later on, even though it was diminished, people shaved their pubic hair and their armpits. So here's a discussion in the Gemara, Masechet Nazir, Daf Nun Tet Amud Aleph. It says the following: Hama'avir bet hashechi uvet ha'erva lokeh. A man who shaves his armpits and his pubic hair will get lashes, because this is not a man's thing to do. It's a feminine thing to do, and he transgresses the isur of lo yilbash gever simrat isha. A man should not dress as a woman. Okay, so in a separate case, there was a man who committed a crime that warranted him. He had to be punished with lashes, not for dressing like a woman, not for doing that. But whatever he did, it's not really written in the Gemara what was the case. And they brought him to the rabbi by the name of Rabbi Ameh. And as they were stripping him of his robe to give him the lashes, Iglai bet hashehi, his armpits were exposed. Haziyeh de la megalah, and Rabbi Ameh noticed that this man did not shave his armpits. Amar lon Rabbi Ameh shivkuh den min havayahu. So the rabbi told the policeman, whoever was in charge of giving the lashes, he says, leave him alone. This man is one of us. Meaning that the fact that man did not remove his the hair, that already makes him a tzaddik. Is part of the more observant circles. Meaning that the majority of people did that. That was under influence of Hellenism. So back to the story in the Midrash, when the Midrash says that Korah was going around and says, look what Moshe did to me, this is the rabbis rebuking the Cohanim who are dedicating time to beautifying themselves in the Hellenistic tradition, in the Greek tradition. Then we have another, then the other thing that I wanted to look at was the argument, and that I was able to find a source for it in the Gemara, the mentioning of Aharon being dressed in an extravagant manner, like a woman. So the Mishnah in Masechet Yoma, which is the tractate that deals with the work of Yom Kippur, says that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest on Yom Kippur, had to change between what is called Bigdei Zahav and Bigdei Lavan. When you read Seder Avodah, several times you read Yarad v'taval, Ala v'nistapag. He went down, he bathed in the mikveh, and he got out, and he dried himself, and he wore the white clothes. Then he did one act, removed those clothes, and wore golden clothes. And there are rules of when does he wear the golden clothes, when does he wear the white clothes. So the golden garments are with all the adornment and the jewelry, they are magnificent. But the white clothes, the white garments are very, very fine, of very fine fabric. And it became a tradition among the Cohanim that on Yom Kippur, they are not using the garments that are provided by the temple, but rather they make their own robe. And that was part of the culture of the second temple, when the Cohanim did not inherit the kehuna, the high priesthood, by merit or by lineage, but rather they bought the position from the Roman government. There was a serious power play involved. In one case, there was even a murder, and some say it was in the temple itself, that one of the Cohanim, who was a candidate to become the high priest, went to the mikveh with his colleagues, and they held him underwater until he drowned, because they didn't want him to get the position. So there was a violent, a very powerful game. Some of those Kohanim were righteous, but they were also dragged into this game of displaying their wealth. So it says this, Bashahar היה לובש פילוסין של 12 מנה, בין הערביים הינדויין של 800 זוז. In the morning, the Kohen would wear a robe made from Egyptian cotton that was worth 1,200 dinari. So very, very expensive robe, Egyptian cotton. And in the evening, he would wear an Indian cotton robe that was worth 800 dinari. So, but altogether, it's an expensive robe. אמרו עליו על רבי ישמעאל בן פי אבי, שעשתה לו עמו כתונת של 100 מנה. It says about Rabbi Ishmael ben Piavi, who was a rabbi and a Kohen Gadol, that his mother made for him a robe that was worth 10,000 dinari. So, if the wealthy high priest would do one that is worth 1,200 dinari, this one had 10,000, like almost 10 times more. And the interesting thing is that this last name Ben Piavi, who's a high priest, is one of the families that were mentioned in the folk song as a powerful yet corrupt family. Then there's another one mentioned here, Rabbi Elazar ben Harsom, who was even wealthier than Ben Piavi, but he was a righteous man. שעשתה לו עמו כתונת משתי ריבו. She went above that and made one robe that was worth 20,000 dinari, just to get a sense and a perspective of how much is a dinar, right? Maneh. So the Gemara says that the ketubah for a woman who was never married before is 2 dinari, shnei maneh. And for a woman who was a widow or a divorcee is 1. So that could have been maybe a year's salary. A year's salary is a maneh. And here, she's doing 20,000 dinari. So this would be today in the millions of dollars. How do you even design something like that? However, he was not able to wear that robe. Why? ולא הניחו אחיו הכהנים ללובשה מפני שנראה כערום. The fabric was so fine that was almost transparent. So the other Kohanim said, very sorry, you can't wear that. It doesn't look good. Right? Like the emperor is naked. So he never wore it. But what we see from this story is that the Kohanim used to display their wealth in a way that was extravagant and even reminded others the Greek culture than what is the Jewish culture. So with that I was able to find 2 parallels. When Korah complains in the Midrash about shaving the body, we find the parallel in the Greek culture that influenced the Kohanim. When he complains about dressing in fancy clothes, we find the equivalent. The one thing that I could not find in the equivalent in rabbinic literature is the story about lifting. Why is he complaining about lifting Moshe? That Moshe lifted him up. But then I did the research for what I remember from Greek mythology and other stories, and I think that what they are talking here about is the Greek wrestling, that we don't really know what were the rules of Greek wrestling, but I think it's still common in all kind of wrestling games today. Correct me if I'm wrong. For the winner at one point to lift his opponent and turn around, show him to the crowd, and then throw him in the ground, right? So in Greek mythology, there's a story about Hercules and his 7 or I don't remember how many tasks. One of them was to fight a a giant by the name, I think it was Anteus. And no matter how much he tried to fight him, Anteus always got back on his feet and defeated Hercules, even when he threw him to the ground. Eventually, Hercules understood that Anteus is the son of Gaia. Gaia is Mother Earth. So every time he touches the ground, he regains his strength. So he lifted him up into the air and did not let him. He detached him from the ground until he was completely weakened, and then he won the battle. So this myth, of course, it's mythology, but it reflects reality. It means that in reality, Greek wrestlers probably showed their victory by lifting their opponent. So the rabbis wove into the Midrash. They took the tenulfa of the Leviim, that is symbolic, raised the Leviim, which means to dedicate them, and they turned it into an act or a match of wrestling, which the Cohanim of the time were very commonly engaged with, because one of the high priests, I think it was Honyo or Jason, built a gymnasium next to the temple. So the Cohanim were engaged in these activities. So again, just like we saw yesterday with the Midrashim about the corruption of the Kohanim and their abuse of power, here there's another Midrash that rebukes the Kohanim for being immersed in the Greek culture, including the fine garments, shaving the body, and wrestling matches. And all this, the rabbis very cleverly hid by putting it in Korah's mouth. We don't have from this specific midrash a particular message we could apply to today's culture in terms of what we do. This is different. But what we can learn is that we have to approach the midrash very carefully and read between the lines to see what was the message of the rabbis and learn from their educational methods. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.